In the 16th century, Machiavelli wrote a text called The Prince, in which he outlined the template for leadership for Renaissance Europe. It was written for the Medicis, a powerful family in Italy at the time, but has been widely utilised by monarchs long after this period and is still referred to in the 21st century. Indeed, the term Machiavellian is still with us and resonates duplicity and underhanded practice. Machiavelli identified a teleological position where the ends justified the means. Issues regarding the outcome or the results of leadership are by what the prince should be judged. In this context, strategies are an important element of leadership, as the strategies provide the means by which objectives and outcomes may be attained. For example, when Bill Clinton had an affair with Monica Lewinsky, did he act immorally? Did he act any more immorally than the average person? In undertaking sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky, as it was delicately put in the press, and covering these up, did he undermine his right to be the President of the United States? The Starr report identified 11 impeachable offences, including perjury, witness tampering, obstruction of justice, and abuses of power. If the President lived to save his political skin, should he have been impeached, or is lying an acceptable part of politics? These questions are extremely difficult to answer and usually rely on individual assessments of what morality entails. However, it is a means by which a more objective understanding may be explored, indeed through analysis of the President's actions in relation to the moral perspectives of the Machiavellian prince. The Machiavellian prince must avoid the contempt of the people. The prince should build his state on the goodwill of the people. He must respect his subjects but be ready to inflict pain on them if necessary, because in the long run it is better to be cruel than weak. The prince should appear upright, honest, compassionate and religious. The prince must ensure that he is never despised or hated. This will occur if he is rapacious and aggressive with regard to the property of his subjects. As long as he does not rob the great majority of their property or their honour, they will remain quite content. In this context, the President asked the American people for their forgiveness, when he contended that there was no way to say he had sinned. In this way, the President put the support of the American people to the test. Clinton asked the people for their prayers and help in healing the nation. It is important that our nation moves forward. It's important that our nation moves forward. Self and nation merge, and he argues that his genuine repentance can unify the country. The President's lesson was everyone's lesson, and through his genuine repentance, with God's help, he would intensify his efforts to lead the USA and the world toward peace, freedom, prosperity and harmony. The President is accepting that he has acted immorally in private, but argued that he always behaved with the most moral diligence in his public duty. For Machiavelli, this is acceptable. A question: can behaviour undertaken in private be divorced from one's public persona? Machiavelli argued that appearances and results always impress the public. The President excels in his appearance of humility. He contends that he is what his Bible calls broken-spirited. Like a true prince, he rises to the occasion. At the time of impeachment, or attempted impeachment, unemployment was low. There was the likelihood of a balanced budget and increasing home ownership. Indeed, economic prosperity ensured and intensified the support that the people provided. In The Prince, Machiavelli indicates that public support wards off potential conspiracies. A conspirator wishes to satisfy the people, but if the people are with the prince, this becomes impossible. Consequently, when the prince has the goodwill of the people, conspiracy is unlikely. However, when the people are not supportive and hostile, the prince should fear everyone. Fundamentally, the most important task the prince has is keeping the general populace on side. If the prince is reasonably able, his rule will be maintained, unless some extraordinary and inordinate force deprive him of it. One may argue that the President accomplished this, that it is through his support that he overcame impeachment. The Republicans misjudged the support the President had. Indeed, they were an extraordinary and inordinate force, but were unable to deprive the President of his office. For Machiavelli, the community was all important. It was not the well-being of the individual that made the state great, but the community or society. There is more than one set of virtues, and different understandings of governance are based on these. However, politics are not devoid of moral virtue. The type of moral society required by a community is both dependent on and subject to the needs of the community. The highest aspiration for the individuals is love of the state. They come together in their own security and recognize that the perpetuation of this security relies on their patriotism. The President made it clear that he loved his country, so much that he was prepared to lie for it. His private life is his own, and if he had lied to save himself and the state, he acted as a true prince. Fundamentally, he covered up his affair with Lewinsky for the sake of America. What about lying? Can this be forgiven? Machiavelli thought that the prince may lie if necessary, but again, he must not incur the hatred of his people. An astute ruler must not honour his word when placed at a disadvantage. He argued that if humanity was good by nature, lying would not be necessary, but because humans are bad and will lie to you, it is acceptable to lie to them. There is a chasm between the way men should live and how they do live, and the person who ignores what actually exists will self-destruct. It is impossible for a prince to act virtuously in all ways when so many are bad. Consequently, if a prince wishes to remain a prince, he must learn how to be virtuous, but use it according to need. In this context, it is acceptable to lie if it is for the good of the state. It is acceptable for the president to lie to protect America. Clinton wishes to remain president. To this end, lying is acceptable. Ultimately, Clinton slightly misjudged the American people. There was no need for him to lie. They would have accepted that he had been unfaithful to his wife. In the final analysis, they accepted he was human, a human being with all the frailties that this involved. Once cornered, Clinton admitted he had done wrong. He testified that he had tried to keep the relationship secret because he did what all people do when they did wrong. He attempted to cover it up. However, he disputed that he told Lewinsky to lie. He did say he would prefer it if the facts about the relationship were not disclosed, but he did not tell her to lie. Lewinsky contended that the president told her to deny the relationship. Indeed, he suggested misleading cover stories, and when Lewinsky indicated she might lie, he made encouraging noises. However, this was never discussed regarding legal situations, and even though they may have discussed ways of covering up the affair, he, as the president, never asked Lewinsky to lie. The president admitted acting with complicity in private, but rejected that he had any part in lying to Congress or the public. President Clinton pledged to fight vigorously, and even though he had done wrong, felt that his privacy had been excessively and unwisely invaded. Machiavelli proposes that public and private moralities are radically opposed. In 1992, when interviewed on BBC TV regarding Jennifer Flowers, the president was asked what these misdemeanors had done for his integrity and trustworthiness. His answer was that in his public life, his integrity and trustworthiness were intact. He had never undermined them. There was no mention of his private life. To sum up, there should be no deviation from good, but the prince should know how to do evil. The prince should be faithful and have a semblance of integrity. The prince should be compassionate, but be ruthless when needed. The state should be maintained at all times to ensure that the prince and the methods used appear honourable and praiseworthy. It is acceptable to lie and act immorally as long as one does not lose the support of the people. In this context, the survival of the state is paramount, because individual and community incorporate each other and one necessitates the other. The prince should act as a strategic leader and nurture and ensure the survival of the state. In such a way, the survival of the prince is ensured.